And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another recap review of season 3 of Godfather of Harlem, brought to you by Big Go Bell Media. It's your boy Lucas here with my guy, my number one doubter of this show, Nate Jr. How you doing this evening,
We
sir?
we finally can say and welcome back, and it actually means something because I'm not going to be in
Right?
the doghouse no more. We ready to go. It is episode 2, season 3, folks. Let's do it.
So this episode is called Azul. Am I saying that
Alzado,
right?
Alzado,
Azado. You know
yeah.
what? I think it's because of Casta that I want to say Azul. Azado.
And your cup has been exposed, sir.
Hey, look, hey, it is what it is here on Big O Bell Media, where we bring you the number one content with the number one deals. Whenever y'all want to insert a brand deal here, this is where you insert it at. But this episode starts off with Bumpy and Malcolm talking about his trip to Africa. This is something we hinted towards in the last episode, that in this season, this will be Malcolm exploring his faith and religion at different places. Africa was one place, and then the first place he explored at is Mecca, that everyone remembers. But he also did do this in Africa. Here we get the talks about the trip to Africa. We get Bumpy still worrying about his safety and anybody being able to jump out on you in Africa, which by itself sounds funny, but back then that was a serious threat to Malcolm's safety. Just what did you think about them starting off here, considering where we left off in the last episode? And we kind of hinted towards like, hey, this is the year that Malcolm is supposed to go on these spiritual journeys, these spiritual trips, to get a better understanding of his religion and his faith.
Yeah, I think now, because again, just how profile of a person, yet the character Malcolm X is, you're going to have to step a little bit away from all of the fluff with this character and really start to hit some of these historical events, because the timeline's getting smaller and shorter for him. So you had to quickly introduce the idea, and I was trying to think of the word last week and saying in the missionary, but it's not missionary, but he's actually going to further educate. And understanding that while this was an importance to what he wanted to do, we still are understanding that the heightened threat to his safety is no matter where he goes. If he goes to Harlem and Queens, if he goes to Africa, it's just letting you know that, like, yeah, he was a very ambitious person. He did, in the eye of some, was achieving a status amongst no other. One could look at him as a prophet of God in an extent, but understand it, much like these prophets of these different religions, there was always a danger to them, and we're seeing Malcolm sort of taking these next steps. There's not much left, I don't feel, that we can kind of fluff with this character. In terms of because y'all know what this is. Like the show says right in the beginning, like, while this is based on characters here, there's sort of say adders for the sake of the entertainment. I think now we're just truly getting to these moments before the ultimate final days of Malcolm X, and it is what it is. I mean, that's not a spoiler, folks. Everyone knows, because if Malcolm X was alive, we would know. I get ridiculed.
Somebody gonna be like, what?
Yeah,
Malcolm is what? When did that happen?
The comments, we love you folks, but man, y'all get mad at everything. Y'all be like, spoilers. Spoilers?
Look,
what do you mean?
If it's a spoiler alert that someone got murdered 40 years ago, I don't know what to tell. I mean, my bad, 50 years ago. I don't know what to tell you at this point. That don't watch anything that mentions his name.
Hey, there's a comment somebody made a couple of weeks ago I meant to tell you about, where somebody was like, hey Lou, I wish you'll stop sugarcoating your stories. Just tell us what you're saying and stop what you're hitting at. So once again,
about 50 years we can have that conversation. It won't happen beforehand. In about 50 years, we can have that conversation.
New show, and people still at it. They try and get you locked up for whatever reason.
I swear, Jeff. Now you're going to have the FBI coming after me. I don't know what's wrong with you people. And they're going to come after me in the 60s. And keep in mind, I wasn't born until the 80s. I don't know what to do here.
People just like, no, just tell us the stories. We want to know. Stop leaving out the details. Stop getting
not at all. Not at all. I'm quiet like Bumpy Johnson. You done lost your mind. But also, part of this spiritual journey that Malcolm was going on. The interesting part was him wanting Elise to go with him.
Yeah, makes
Now,
sense.
it kind of plays a certain way because off of season 2, there were questions about just how close they were together. But I know this is skipping a little bit ahead, but I did love the point that when meeting up later with Malcolm and Elise asked him about the trip, and she said, "Well, me, you, and Betty in Africa," and he's like, "Betty's not going," and she said, "Well, is she okay?" And she says, "Betty suggested that you go." So like this just shows the closeness of their bond. We saw it get really close in season 2, especially after she got expelled from the nation. How just Betty fully embraced her. Did you think like in this moment that it highlights Elise even more? Because this is the one character like we know about Betty Shabazz, we know about that character, we know about Malcolm X. Elise is someone that most people have never heard of before, outside of being Bumpy's daughter. So I want to say this is the character they could take a little bit more embellishment with, because a lot of people don't know about this character. But what did you think about just her being mentioned of being brought on this trip, and then Bumpy's response to it?
Yeah, I think this to everything you said, fully agree because this is definitely an aspect to this character I was never aware of. And I started to think, and I'll be completely transparent here, but when it came down to a lot of the civil rights activists, I was more keen to Martin Luther King, because when you talked about the two strategies, one felt more radical than the other, and I didn't know no better, but I just went with the person who had the holiday. It's just what it was. It's the more popular name. But like the more and more you
schools. I mean, Malcolm X wasn't taught. Like, he was mentioned.
Yeah,
but
no, 100%.
You got taught about Martin Luther King. You did not get taught about Malcolm X, really.
That's true. And as you get older and more content is available, obviously reading his books and then obviously looking at different forms of media, this still wasn't anything that I was aware of with Malcolm X. And I think to also really put something in perspective here, because it's easily to look at this situation and say, oh, she loves him. Maybe he's falling for her. This is a perfect opportunity for him to do what every dude do when they take a random girl to Cabo or Tulum or Cancun. He gonna go down there and act the fool. Yeah. But like, I think it's very important that understanding the reason why he was also removed from the mosque, because he exposed infidelity there. I think also, as much as you like to kind of look at Malcolm X as like, a level. I'm not going to put words in anybody's mouth, but depending on however you want to view him, this is a very critical point of understanding that like he actually was really doing really good things. I think the blessing of his wife without even bat in the eye, at least understanding her responsibility and opportunity to this. I think that this is a very key moment into the character of Malcolm X. And also I'm so much more interested in seeing where Elise's story go, not only with the series but also in real life. I want to know more now, because I just did not know this, and this was definitely a really like fascinating eye-opening moment of history here.
Hey, as we're constantly getting with this character in this show, and Antoinette Legacy, I think I'm saying her name right again, the actress who plays Elise, is absolutely killing it. It's that tenderness that she gives every time she speaks, that you believe everything she says. It works perfectly for this character. But next up, we get possibly one of the biggest things that should never happen in this line of business, and that is Joe cornering Mamie as she's coming out the grocery store and basically forcing her to ride with him. Everyone knew how Bumpy was going to respond to this when it happened. Did you think, and again, this is a little foreshadowing, did you think Bumpy would take it as far as he took it in this episode?
Heck no. Heck no. I thought Mamie, she like knew better. And I don't think this scene was done as much justice as it should, because we know she's a very stern woman, very much in the confidence in her decision making. And I think when she says like, "Who are you? Who's your boss?" I'm not going nowhere yet. You know who my husband is. I'm not doing that. And I thought like the sort of how this kind of transpired into her getting in the car, I just wasn't convinced. So I started to think this was
Really?
for. I just did not see. I didn't feel the force for her to have to get in there because I felt like she could have walked and it would have been okay. Um, but
Hmm.
I thought like even for what the scene wanted to portray or depict,
Right. Yeah.
I just wanted to see it more stir. I didn't want to see muscle, but I wanted it to feel more convincing upon Joe wanting her to get into the car because he did sort of create like what almost felt like a safe space, just a form of
Oh
being able
yeah.
to connect. But it still was just knowing her, like she wasn't just one to just jump in a scenario without exploiting all the options there. I thought she was truly going to just walk away, and she went back in. And even her
Mm.
taking the glass, which I have that same glass by the way, I was just like, I don't know, but I do
Oh, see,
think
that was symbolic to me. Her taking the glass
okay,
because she
okay,
took it right after he said, "I have cops and everything. I can protect Bumpy." Because her biggest fear is him going back to Alcatraz or him being locked back up again and going away. So she's going to listen to someone who's almost guaranteeing nothing bad will happen. Also, if we go back to episode 1, remember when Bumpy told her the offer that Joe gave him, and she said he seems way more reasonable than anyone else you've dealt with before. So I think it was a comfort level of her in the end, we understand why Joe's offering this. Like, it seems like he really wants to work with Bumpy because he really wants to take over Harlem. And he's doing little things as suggestion. And he thought, I will go to the most powerful or the person who has his ear the most.
yeah,
And that's his wife. It just so happens to do that. You're also violating old code. But again, they foreshadowed this when they met with Bumpy the first time and said, well, you got to go to Joe. Joe's new. He doesn't necessarily go by all the old rules. This is one of the old rules he's not going to go by. So I love that scene because I love the way it was set up. It was just someone getting in her way enough, making enough of a suggestion for her to get into the car. It was the
yeah,
conversation that made her comfortable because then you're talking about, hey, I can do this for your husband. I can keep him out of jail, which is again her biggest fear is
yeah,
something happening to Bumpy.
yeah.
And this
And I
man is almost promising her this won't happen. If he partners with me, he'll be fine.
Yeah, and I do agree with that. I mean, that proposition was definitely a means for her to take a toast here.
Hmm.
But yeah, this was just for whatever reason, the setup of her getting in the car I just wasn't totally convinced. I just felt like she was,
Mm.
I felt like she knew, you know, you don't take the candy from the creepy guy in the back of the van here. And I felt like she looked at it like, who's your boss? Never heard of him, going the other way. And
Well, no, remember she heard of the boss. She was acting like she didn't. Bumpy told her all about him.
yeah,
Could it be
yeah.
that she did this all as a setup? She just wanted to get the information from him.
But then he not wrong though.
What?
I mean, much like I said last week, I said that like a lot
Hmm.
of a lot of when it comes down to Bumpy's ideology in terms of why he made the decision
Yeah.
making comes from his wife. So yeah, why not go to
Yes.
her?
That's why I said I hear you're the person who has the most impact. And she said, "Oh, you doubt my husband." Everybody like, "Nah, we don't, but we know you. We fully understand what you're capable of here." And that's what helped set all that up. Was again, which is just an interesting setup. But then it leads to Bumpy exploding and losing his mind and wanting to murder everybody. Anybody Italian, he didn't care who you was, you had to die after that confrontation with Mamie.
Uh-huh.
What did you
Uh-huh.
just think about that second meeting with the not second meeting, but the first meeting with Bumpy with the other head of the family as he's talking about everything with Joe and how he tries to reassure Bumpy? Did you believe him at all in reassuring Bumpy that this is something they wouldn't stand for?
Yeah, Tommy's easily influenced here. I mean, we already seen the situation with
Mhm.
Olympia. So, like, yeah, of course. I mean,
Yep.
this is a very reactive type of guy. Like, you spit enough in his ear and he gonna go do what you say. So yeah, which is funny because like I like this character. Like you tell him, say like, I don't like this. And he's like, I ain't gonna do nothing about it. And you just keep saying I don't like it. It's like, fine, we'll do something about it. So Yeah, it just was a lot of the same of last week here.
Hey,
So I
same
was
thing
like,
Olympia did to him. Turn around, Bumpy. I can't believe he did that. Well, you know what we got to do? It's like, come on, man. You can't keep on falling for this over and over again. But at
Can
this
we
point,
talk about while like there's obviously a lot of good performances on this show, but understand that Forrest Whitaker is the lead here, and understand that Forrest Whitaker has to remind you every few episodes that he is the star for the reason he is the
of
star.
course,
In this episode, he went into gear. There was a lot of good moments here from Forrest that I just was just really so keen and high to. That again, it's just a reminder.
He went to his Oscar-winning gear.
Yeah.
He said, "Oh, tell you exactly what I do here." He went to a gear that at times it was hard for other people to be on screen with him. Because he started acting circles around him. It's not much you can do. The whole scene where he's upset and he's like, I want him dead. Like that whole scene right there, it was so much emotion in those few words that even no one could keep up to it. And I think that's the point of it, because Bumpy is so larger than life as a person. You need someone who can 1 minute be very calm and the next minute take it to a level you didn't expect to see it from. Same thing we got with Vincent with Chen in the prior seasons, where at times it would be calm, but then when he went off, it's just like the person standing next to him just was like, okay, boss. Like it's nothing else you can really say, nothing else you can really do. But here is where Bumpy makes the declaration that we're going to war. And then they started counting their soldiers. And again, this has been an ongoing issue with Bumpy since season 2, when he killed off the 10 Harlems, about having these soldiers. And I was waiting for us to hear ramifications of all that dope going up and how the street gangs would respond to it. And here to hear his team like, hey, we got some people, other people are not down to be with us because we promised them something that we couldn't fulfill. And then we get the meeting with the other heads of these groups in Harlem that's supposed to be under Bumpy. And we get Bumpy, I'm assuming, shooting somebody up with fentanyl, because it looked the same way to me. What did you think about Bumpy's approach here? As again, he when he's angry, he goes strictly by force, and he kind of leaves the mind games and the mind tricks that he's known for and that works better alone.
Yeah, I always think it's interesting when Dell and what's his name kind of look at Bumpy like, oh, what hold on now, because you know them the two that's ready to they TTL, man, like at any given point. So like a TTG, but like at any given point, you know, and in fact when they get shot, it's much like our response, like, oh, really? But I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I don't necessarily agree with his means of re-recruiting here. Listen, if you're not with me, you're gonna die. It's like, here's your bricks, and he really showed bricks. I was like, oh man, what a sucker move there. Like that's because somebody had to stack those bricks, and it had to be them.
Exactly.
So like,
you already know who stacked the bricks.
Of course I did. But I mean, it's to me the bigger story here is Joe. Because as soon as he found out that they were going to go back to relay the intimidation yet fear message, Joe said, that's okay. I'll take care of those pigeons, and that's the end of that, you know. So, but yeah, Bumpy's just irrational, and that's the biggest thing. He's doing what he thinks is right, and I think when his other guys are kind of looking like what. It's telling. I also thought it was funny too that Odell was basically like, and our strongest soldiers are with Malcolm Metz and his detail, and they're going to stay there.
Yep,
shows you the priority here once again.
It also makes you wonder: It makes you wonder: is Joe making the moves that Bumpy used to make? Because did he do this from the beginning just to knock Bumpy off his square? Because right now, at this episode, we get Bumpy being extremely irrational. And that's kind of what you want, is someone like him not being in control of everything like he would normally be. Because it leaves room and leaves doors open for you to take advantage of. So it just kind of made me wonder, like, oh, is this guy who everyone doubting, is he playing a game that no one is keeping up with him on? which will be a
Yeah.
very interesting twist for this season if that's the case that we get. But the next thing we get with Joe is he gets a message from Chen about his daughter and him needing to get his daughter found, as he relays a message that someone in the family is trying to kill his kid. We know who's trying to kill his daughter. It's obvious who's trying to kill his daughter. What did you think about the way this message was relayed to Chen and him promising, if you find her, I'll give you exactly what you want, which is the backing of the families to go against Bumpy?
I mean, I keep like, this is what it is. I just can't help but to think that why hasn't I know I'm really jumping the gun here, but why hasn't Stella mentioned who was attempting to get her, so that everybody's looking around like, well, who was it? You know, process of elimination here. I mean, this is more telling about the power of Chen in jail, to get the intel, work him through his lawyer, and you know he's going to promise. Yes, I think it's partial protection of his daughter, but I think it's also partial like trying to regain trust back with his daughter. The other thing I think you can also say too is like Joe definitely has like connections, and I know they're Chen connections, but seeing how Joe was able to get a ear to the street so quick about everything, it's just going, you know, it's just a matter of like, how does this all play out? I mean, from the first two seasons, we see Chen, you know, kind of play by his own rules, and Joe just seems the extreme version of that here. So they're easily seeing eye to eye on this, and whether, you know, Joe with his goals and Chen being able to make his wildest fantasies come true, it's still the same thing. They're using different language for whatever reason, but it's the same thing. Chen wanted this, Joe want this. Chen comes back out of jail, will want to come out of jail and to reclaim everything that Joe's done. Then there's conflict there. I mean, like it's nothing special going on here between these guys. Hey, protect my daughter because I want her to like me.
That's it. It is very simple. And I need Olympia not to kill her, because I think at this point Chen even knows who's trying to kill her. He ain't crazy.
It's just interesting that like not once. I know that's probably something that they want to play out a little bit longer, but I'm like, is anybody? And I thought the lawyer was going to pick up on it a little bit here. So, you know,
I think in the end they all know, but it's just not to be spoke upon though who it is, because you're not going to say someone in the families once are dead, and you just not have a conversation with the people in the family, because as the family said, kids and wives are off limits.
Yeah.
Why would they want her dead then? It wouldn't add up to make sense.
Yeah, he's season that's been tested to be false.
Exactly. But next
men also too. Like no one's off limits within this organization.
Well, they're supposed to be. They're not supposed to go this far. But again, this is what happens when you get that influx of new blood in these organizations, and then they no longer pay attention to all of the old rules. Same thing, unfortunately, that look at 2022. We're in the same issue. Old rules only apply to old people. And that's what they're going through here.
Yeah.
But next couple of things, nothing overly important. We get Stella, who is in Philly with Teddy's mom, as this has become her safe haven person all of a sudden. Very weird. Out of everything that happened with Teddy, her mom absolutely hated that this white girl was with her son, but now she's become part of the safe haven for Stella. Good scene between them two. Not much to pull from there, except for Stella went to Philly, and Philly has the same exact problems that they have in New York. Literally no difference.
Yep.
Next scene, Betty becomes the fourth member of the team to tell Elise, you need to go to Africa. It's an ongoing theme of this episode. Everybody wants her to go to Africa, except for Elise and Bumpy. I don't get it. It's not a big thing. But the biggest thing next is we get the introduction of a legend, a Cuban legend, in Jose Battle. They don't say Junior here, but clearly that's who it is. Jose Battle Jr. We get the introduction to him through Bumpy, who says, hey, we need more guns. We need more firepower. I know the person we need to talk to. What did you think about this reintroduction of this character? Because I don't think his family's been brought up since the murder in season one. I think it was season one. Yeah. Since that murder in season one, we haven't really heard of his family much at all. But here, when Bumpy knows, like, I need to partner with somebody who would have the muscle the firepower, everything to help me go against the Italians. What did you think about this whole scene, this whole introduction, as we see the way Jose Battle does his business, the things he relies on to do his business?
Yeah. Okay. So it's interesting. I just wanted to look it up real quick. What year are we in the show? What, 64, right?
64.
Yeah. Yeah. I was looking up when a Cuban missile crisis
Missile
was.
crisis.
Yes, which was 62. Bring this up too, because understanding that Jose Battle of Cuban descent, who obviously has a lot of hatred for what am I saying?
America.
No, not America. Who's the dictator right now? Did you say Castro?
Castro.
Castro, yeah. This understanding with everything that's kind of going on politically in the world, for him to have sort of this pipeline and connection to get these military guns makes him the most valuable person in anything we've seen thus far. And the reason you can know nothing, but if you know just a little bit, there's really two things that are war built on: drugs, but drugs are and guns, because the drugs fund the guns, because the guns fund the war, which the war funds everything, because the money dumped into the war funds these things. Understanding that this guy has high military grade guns literally makes him the most valuable person we've seen on this show thus far. With a very humble introduction here, but such a very pivotal character when everybody knows, the Five family and Bumpy knows him on whatever side is adding LeBron to your team, sir. This is just what it is. And also, this is where the title of the show, Alzado, is brought up, which in Cuba is the Cuban fighters who died trying to kick out the Spaniards. Here, just the correlation here. But he appreciated that Bumpy do something. It's like you're a very knowledgeable person. And obviously this Jose has a very different temper and demeanor than any other person you have. The person with the most power is the most chillest person right now. You know, you come into his things, nothing intimidating there. He's having dinner in his restaurant and it's fully serviced. You hear other people in the background. You know, everybody else, they close their whole restaurant just for the bosses to meet, you know. So like understanding the whole place is different. He even has his own Miss Cleo back there, who instead of taking calls, she works by the shelves here. And so this is his religion. This is interesting because we know this is truly what the episode is about, is who's going to gain the loyalty and the alliance with Jose. I mean, quickly did Joe understand, like, oh, I heard he played the visit. Oh, I'm gonna have to figure something out. And try to cut him in the deal, and also too, because just in case there's anybody ignorant out there, this guy's Cuban. So as they talked about the minority issue here amongst the families and whatnot, he said, "You're brown, I'm black. You know,
we can't partner."
Yeah,
they don't want that under no circumstance.
So, this was a lot of good information to really understanding the climax of what's happening across not only just New York, but the world. You know, because he's also, as he said, his country's at war, and he would do anything. He said, "Fuck all this here."
He care less about anything else.
Yeah, nothing else. So. And that's why he says, like, I'm out the way. The deal is the deal because I'm not bothered. So it's almost like he's saying, like, I'm getting my money and I'm operating, I'm surviving because I don't care about this. So I don't care about the logistics here, you know.
But as Bumpy brought up a good point, you're kicking back a lot of money to them. And the number to remember at this point, because the most important part of their meeting here is Bumpy saying, I'll give you 50% of my business.
Yeah.
If you partner,
you would do that. He said you would do
highly
that.
Important. It was highly important that he said that number because it comes up later on at the end of this episode. But next up again, we get back to Joe finding Stella in Philly. We're just not going to even attempt to explain how he knew exactly where she was in Philly in this random black woman's house. He was just like, Stella's there.
And maybe just for the sake of time, because the lawyer found out from looking at the magazine inside the thing, and maybe he took that information. Maybe he went back and told, clearly he went back and told Chen once he said, "Who's Dahlia?" the address, and then Chen told Joe. So to your point, I feel like I would love to see just how much more resourceful Joe is. I would love to see the connection.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what these scenes look like, but I would like to know that. And matter of fact, to be honest, and I guess it's still it's still left to be determined. Vincent D'Onofrio is casted for the season, but maybe he's not. Maybe they're just using his name. Maybe he's not, because he hasn't been in the credits yet. But when it turns down, when you know, when you look at articles, it was say he's returning this season. Maybe this is the way how you keep the character relevant, but you can't actually use Vincent. So, because for me, it's easy. What I would love to have heard was the phone call between the lawyer or between Joe and Chen, and to understand just how important this is for him to get Stella.
Yes.
And say the intel that they got and go do what you got to do. So, you know, we just got to just kind of let it be what it be. Joe got connections. We may or may not see him, but you know, things are kind of connecting one way or another.
So here we get the big family blow up between Mamie, Bumpy, Elise, involving Margaret, taking her back down south because Bumpy knows the war is about to happen here. And we get Mamie decide that she's not willing to run anymore. She said, I went down there before, I couldn't sleep for days on end. They're uncomfortable with sending Margaret back down there because everything they went through the last time this happened, where they had to go away for their safety. And then in the end, we get Elise having a conversation with Bumpy, like, no matter what, she wants to go to Africa. Like, I want to go. I can't miss this once in a lifetime opportunity. What did you think about this entire setup? Because I think early on, it seemed to be everyone wanted Elise to go to Africa, but Bumpy and her, and then it was a big confusion. Later on, it becomes an issue with Margaret as Margaret finds out about the trip and about her not wanting Elise to give up this opportunity to experience something different. What do you think about just as a whole setup, including everything that happened with Margaret?
Yeah, Margaret's earning her last name here. She's quickly maturing and having a voice at the table. And this is a different voice than the dynamics between the four of them have had in the past. I mean, Margaret was spoken for before. Every decision for what Margaret was best for Margaret was left to the adults to do so. But now she's being respected and she has a seat at the table to make some of these decisions. And I think that this was a coming out party for her as a Johnson, for her to now be a voice of reason for everyone involved. So like it was a cool scene. If anybody didn't know, all black people go to the South for whatever reason. So her keep being sent to the South.
Perfect place to go away to.
Yes, every era, everybody. If it ain't you spending the summer at your grandma's house, that probably don't even live in the South, but you're still gonna go down there anyway. It could just be a day because you're going to the South. Everybody's going to the South, and this was listen. It's funny because they talk about safety and wherever you go, right? And he said, no matter where I go, like Elise said, no matter where I go, I would always be.
Your shit will always follow. Yep.
So what? Go to the South?
What would make the difference down south? Literally, what would be the difference?
Yeah.
More isolated areas for your shit to catch up with me. That's about it, really.
Yeah, and the South wasn't too black friendly back then, so I don't know.
It is very weird that we're talking about the 60s and you sending anybody down south of color for safety. It's like, what? Like, ain't the Klan there? Like, I understand your enemies aren't there, but boy, is it a lot of other people that we need to be worried about.
Yeah, that civil rights bill just got signed, like, I don't know, a couple of days ago. So
yeah, so so you already know what that means. That shit don't come into effect for another 20 years. You think they can about the Civil Rights Act in the 60s?
Yeah, there's just a bunch of just irrational decisions being made by the adults, but Margaret seemed to piece it together to make the only rational decision. And I think, you know, it set people straight, got everybody's head back screwed. And you know, Mamie is even, you can kind of look at her and say she's proud to see her step up in the way she is. She is definitely a Johnson. So it was a dope moment, you know. It's a coming out party.
As you said, it's the coming of age of a young girl who's been dragged around everywhere humanly possible for the safety of her father. And now they're finally realizing, like, hey, we got a teenager on our hands at this point.
Yeah,
that's no longer going to work.
Yeah,
a teenage girl at that. Like, she's going to have her own mind about the things that she wants to do. Like, we just forgetting that y'all just told her she had 2 mommies 3 months ago. So he can't keep on dragging her everywhere in shape, form, and fashion.
Yeah.
Next up, we get the meeting. Joe, Jose, just about Bumpy Johnson. It's a very quick meeting, and it's very much to the point of, hey, I heard he met with you. So, did you take the offer? What's going on here? Are you something I need to worry about? It's a fishing expedition, it felt like, from Joe. Because he fully understands, again, as you pointed out, if you don't have Jose on your side, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. The last thing you want, or anybody wants, is someone with military-grade weapons going against you. Funded, because I know they don't talk about it, but keep in mind, when he keeps on saying, my only goal is to kill Castro,
by the government.
He's getting these military weapons from
the government.
For free.
Like I said, yeah, there's not. I mean, maybe there's more, but there's not enough emphasis on it, you know. And I know pipeline is typically a drug-related term, but like this is definitely, he is the connect. He has a pipeline to getting these military guns. This is makes him easily the most valuable person right now on the show, and that's why they had to make sure everyone knew that. Like, listen, it's 5 families and the Godfather of Harlem, and all of us are trying to recruit LeBron on our team, because
exactly
this is a game changer here, you know. But I will say that, you know, Jose and his like relatable factors didn't work here. he tried the same tactic earlier. It's like, not gonna work. He's like, okay, listen, you should come to the meeting, man. You know, we'll cut you in if you come here. And I thought it was, I mean, because the families knew, but I thought it was really interesting knowing that he's like not really, folks, but like how he becomes like the descendant of Chen, but yet the protege of Chen. And he just comes out and he just starts divvying up percentages to everybody. And everybody's like, yeah, this seems like it'd be a good deal. It's like, you know, and this is, the question was like, he wasn't getting any day before. Now he's getting 10%. And everybody was like, oh, well, yeah, it is Jose. So like, yeah, we can get him for 10%. This kind of like a come up. Honestly, they should have been saying 25 and 25 is what it should have been. That would have been a little bit of a game changer here.
That's part of the mess up as we get to the big meeting where they lay out the laws for Bumpy. And that is, hey, you sell, you're dope. We'll give you 25%. Disrespectful. And then we'll divvy up the rest amongst us, and Jose will get 10%. When they said Jose get 10%, hopefully the audience, if you didn't pick up on it, go back and look at Bumpy's smirk to Jose when they said 10. Because it goes back. That's why I said the percentage was highly important when Bumpy offered him 50. Because now he's seeing again what Bumpy brought up. They don't respect either one of us. They don't think anything of either one of us. 10% for someone like Jose is extremely disrespectful. And it plays that way. And then Bumpy, being Bumpy, says, screw you guys. I'm not doing any of this deal. It kind of shows, again, the stubbornness of Bumpy, but Bumpy gave the perfect analogy is, at the end of season 2, when I had the French Connection, I had everything set up. We were equal partners.
Yeah.
So you let the lion out the cage, you ain't going to be able to put me back in that cage.
Yeah.
So if it ain't equal, I don't want it. And clearly we hear that. It's clearly said in this episode, Bumpy still has control of the drugs. The new shipment ain't came in yet, but when the shipment comes in, it's going directly to Bumpy.
Yeah.
What did you think about this whole scene? The looks, the side looks especially, because that's what caught my attention, is that look that led to that conversation at the end of the episode with Bumpy and Jose. It was that look that Bumpy gave him. And that saying that Jose appreciated the most is, you know, you got out the cage. Why would you go from a 50-50 partnership to me paying you 25%?
Yeah, I'm not an avid player, but I mean, folks, this is poker at its finest right here. I mean, from every bit of the mannerisms, the looks, the nods, the no, I got you, all those sorts of different things. So it's why we watch this show, man. We each and every episode we look to see Bumpy somehow one up or somehow show some level of resilience in every situation. This was it. This was the one where he again comes up above the evil Italian family. So
yeah, we're gonna eventually have to play this and be like, are they so evil? Because their terms for leaders are pretty decent. Since that Bumpy's like, nah, I'm not going with any of y'all deals. Like,
oh my goodness.
at one point, I was expecting him to tell Bumpy, like, look, what do you want? Like, that's the only thing Joe hasn't really said to Bumpy is, what do you want?
Yeah.
What do you want to make this work? But in the end, we also know that Joe's main goal is to control Harlem completely. He needs Bumpy gone to do so. So, episode 2, season 3, Godfather of Harlem. What are your final thoughts on this episode, sir?
Feel like, hold on, there's a couple of other things that really came to mind. I just looking at my notes real quick. I to kind of reiterate what we talked about last week, but obviously being mentioned earlier in this episode was Mamie talking about how she knew you rob your own people. Rob your own people to pay off the debt to the white man. I mean, they were getting ready for a 12 rounder there because they were throwing some jazz very early in this fight. But he said my favorite comeback ever, and I don't think she could argue that. Was a consider it reparations here, and I was just like, yeah, it's government funded, and yeah, it's so.
But he was talking about reparations for his drugs. He definitely wasn't talking about 40 acres and a mule. He cared less about any of that.
For real. Yeah, you mentioned the conversation with Stella and how she wants to get to Europe because that's where she feels like she'll be safe, and with Teddy's mom basically saying you're the last bit of Teddy that's left, and the money is she got from Ernie. That this makes sense that you have this for you to go. So it's good to see them turn the page. But yeah, Stella was definitely kidnapped, and the meet between them is saying like it's only kidnap if you run away. Obviously, Joe's not letting her go, but she wants to get to Europe, so we're going to see how she somehow slithers out of this. But the big important thing is he needs her father to trust him, so she need her to trust him. I'm like, yeah, this ain't gonna happen. So I can't wait to see how this eventually gets nuclear amongst the three of them, because Stella don't want nothing to do with her dad. They ain't gonna do nothing with him. But I also really think, again, I think we still got to think about the FBI involvement here. They're gonna want to know
because they completely left him alone in this episode. But it also could be because, as he said, Stella makes a horrible witness. It could be the FBI's like, I can't use you. Like, you're with a Negro in the 60s and you're white. You know what? That's as bad as you can get.
Yeah, but I mean, gotta protect her still. That's still his job. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that play got Morgan down. And again, his name is brought up every beginning of it because the whole family's just hot and tight because of him. So we're gonna kind of see how that plays out. But yeah, I want to see what Stella gonna do next, and how she may be the demise of what Joe tries to put together. As he tries to do her father's goodwill, but eventually we know that's not gonna last long. So.
Hey, especially when we know Chen ain't getting out, clearly.
Yeah.
Unless it's a heck of a technicality that pops up. But again, this is the path that Joe has to go down. And again, I love the point that you're basing these characters off of well-known gangsters. Like, this ain't somebody that people don't know. You know who Joe Colombo is. All you got, if you don't, look him up to see exactly who he was and how his story goes with this path or with this family.
I just want to right. I just want to know when Stella's gonna open up her mouth and say like blah 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 tried to kill me. She has some bit of she has to have some type of wherewithal of knowing that certain events where was her uncle? Did she mention my uncle never came, but somebody else did? Who told you your uncle was coming and you should be in the house? It takes 1 minute of thinking to put this together here. And I
think that conversation is going to happen between her and Joe.
Yeah, I do.
And
I think
that's going to relay it back to Chen.
Yeah. So, yeah.
And maybe that's how Stella gets away. Maybe instead of him killing his wife, he lets Stella go. And be like, hey, let her go. Like, as long as she's somewhere safe, I'm happy. Because they're never going to have a relationship again. So maybe that's the way he sees it. I mean, there's no telling. But we got, 8 more episodes left? to see
Yeah.
exactly how this works with Bumpy, Joe, Jose, Stella. Like it feels like a movie. You naming all of these characters, and you wonder how this stuff is going to go. But you could check out this review Sunday right after the episode airs, and we will be back every Sunday after this episode airs. So check us out, like, subscribe, comment, tell us what you're thinking about this show so far. Let us know what you think about this situation with Stella and Chen. Are we gonna get any resolution from it? What did you think about Bumpy? Is he unhinged, or is he trying to back the Italians into a place that needs be? How important is Jose to this entire war structure between all the families? These are answers that we would love for you all, or questions if you all have them about this show. Again, check us out. Let us know what you think. This has been another review brought to you from Big Gold Belt. Peace.